we are officially putting one of the most famous and honestly most polarizing personal finance books of all time on trial. I'm talking about Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And specifically, we're zeroing in on the version adapted for teens. I'm taking the role of the prosecution today, and I am fully prepared to prove that this book is overhyped, it's dangerously misleading, and it pushes this survivor bias narrative that actually harms the financial stability of hardworking people.
And I am absolutely thrilled to take the defense. Because, what the prosecution calls dangerous, I call a vital, desperately needed financial wake-up call. Look, this book isn't about taking reckless risks. It's about breaking free from outdated, industrialized educational programming that literally keeps people trapped in fear. We're going to prove that the core ideas here are genuinely valuable and absolutely necessary for surviving in today's economy.
So here is the defendant, Rich Dad, Poor Dad for teens. I mean, just look at it. The cover itself totally screams, get rich quick. It's plastered with this giant dollar sign promising secrets about money, which implies that your teachers and your parents are somehow actively, maliciously hiding wealth-building strategies from teenagers. It sets up this immediate, massive distrust of the traditional education system for literally no other reason than to sell copies. Okay, hold on. I need to draw your attention to that exact subtitle. The secrets about money that you don't learn in school. That is not a scammy marketing tactic. That is a statement of absolute fact. As the book clearly points out, we've got a staggering national debt and millions of people struggling financially. Why? Because our schools focus entirely on scholastic and professional skills, and they completely ignore financial literacy. The pages inside this book, they hold the secret to actual financial intelligence, which is pretty much the only real defense we have against a rapidly changing global economy.
We're going to let the evidence speak for itself. Here's the docket for today's explainer. First, Exhibit A, the education indictment. Then, Exhibit B, assets versus liabilities. Exhibit C, corporate tax loopholes. Then we'll do closing arguments. And finally, the final verdict, which will be decided by you. Let's get started.
Number 1. Exhibit A, the education indictment.
The prosecution argues that this book dangerously, and I mean dangerously, undermines the value of traditional schooling, professional skills, and just safe, reliable jobs. It essentially tells young, impressionable minds that studying for a stable career is a complete fool's errand. Just listen to this direct quote from the text. Today, the most dangerous advice you can give a child is, go to school, get good grades, and look for a safe, secure job. I mean, wow. This is profoundly irresponsible. The book relies on fear-mongering about corporate downsizing to convince teens that becoming a doctor, a lawyer, or just a steady employee is a trap. It literally dismisses these incredibly vital professions as mere sophisticated bean counters who just work to pay taxes.
Objection. Seriously, the book is absolutely not anti-education. Kiyosaki explicitly writes that every culture needs teachers, doctors, mechanics, or a society can actually thrive. But we have to look at the mindset shift he's actually proposing here. Poor Dad says, study hard so you can find a good company to work for. Rich Dad says, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. He correctly identifies that school is the beginning, not the end. That Poor Dad mindset, it is built entirely on the fear of not having a job. It's not about ignoring education at all. It's about acquiring a different kind of education so you can become an employer. Like the book says, employees lose, owners and investors win. It's just teaching kids the actual rules of the game.
Number 2. Exhibit B, assets versus liabilities.
The prosecution attacks this next exhibit for absolutely butchering complex accounting principles just to create a catchy narrative. I mean, it wildly oversimplifies the entire financial world.
And that simplicity is exactly why it's so brilliantly effective. Look, yes, trained accountants might totally pull their hair out at this definition. An asset puts money in your pocket, a liability takes money out. But the book leans on the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Average people, and especially teenagers, they don't need to read a complex balance sheet in Mandarin, okay? They desperately need this fundamental truth so they can stop buying things they think are assets, which are actually just bleeding them dry.
Okay, but that quote-unquote simple truth leads to completely absurd, financially destructive advice. Here's the quote, "My house is a liability, and if your house is your largest investment, you're in trouble." telling hardworking families that the American dream, owning a home, is actually a liability, that's just insulting. For generations, homeownership has been the primary, the most reliable way the middle class builds equity and generational wealth. And this book just dismisses it entirely, claiming you're just working for the bank that owns your mortgage.
Okay, but if you actually follow the cash flow, the book's logic is totally sound. Think about it. A house requires a massive initial drain of capital, plus ongoing mortgage payments, property taxes, and constant maintenance. It is literally taking cash out of your pocket every single month. By definition, that makes it a liability. The path to real wealth laid out here is super clear. Keep your expenses low, reduce those liabilities, and build a base of solid assets first, things like intellectual property, businesses, or income-producing real estate. And then you use the income generated by those actual assets to buy your bigger house. It's teaching financial discipline, not destroying the American dream.
Number 3. Exhibit C. Corporate tax loopholes.
Which brings us to our final, and honestly most scandalous charge, the book's blatant glorification of exploiting the tax code. It actively encourages young people to view paying their fair share to society as some kind of game for losers. It proudly contrasts the employee who earns money, pays taxes, and then struggles to live on what's left with the corporation who earns money, spends literally whatever it wants on quote-unquote expenses, and then only pays taxes on the leftovers. The author literally boasts about buying Porsches with pre-tax dollars. This isn't financial literacy, this is just pushing shady corporate loopholes and tax evasion tactics onto teenagers.
Objection. It is not tax evasion, it's tax efficiency, and it is 100% legal. The book merely illustrates the legal rules of money that the rich already play by. Seriously, why should financial education only teach kids how to be taxed at the highest possible bracket?
As the book plainly states, the tax man will always take more if you let him. Kiyosaki dismantles that whole Robin Hood myth, the idea that taxes only hurt the rich. In reality, the wealthy use legal vehicles like corporations to protect their assets, and that leaves the uninformed middle class to foot the bill. Shielding yourself with a corporation is just a necessary defense mechanism against a system that is literally designed to penalize the uninformed. It's about empowering young people with the exact same financial IQ the wealthy use to protect themselves from lawsuits and excessive taxation.
Number 4. Closing arguments. Let's summarize the core positions you've heard today.
The prosecution maintains that rich dad, poor dad is a dangerous illusion. It tells kids to stop worrying about getting a safe job, it wildly redefines basic accounting to suit its own narrative, and it glorifies dodging taxes. And it's all built on a massive dose of survivorship bias. I mean, for every Robert Kiyosaki, there are thousands of people who tried to buy a company or game the system and ended up totally bankrupt because they didn't have a steady paycheck to fall back on. It openly disparages the hardworking employees who actually keep our society running.
And the defense maintains that this book is the ultimate tool to defeat financial ignorance and fear. The source text constantly warns against being a chicken little, letting unchecked doubt and the fear of risk keep you poor. Now, this book doesn't guarantee you'll be a billionaire overnight, no, but it guarantees that if you spend your whole life working for a paycheck without understanding cash flow, assets, and the power of corporations, you will be trapped in the rat race forever. It is a completely empowering, essential perspective shift.
Number 5. The final verdict.
So, we have presented the case for and against this monumental personal finance book. But you know what? The ultimate decision doesn't rest with us.
Exactly. You've seen the evidence directly from the source. You understand the controversial stance on education, the simplified asset definitions, and those corporate tax strategies.
So, what's it gonna be? Is this book a dangerous illusion that encourages reckless financial behavior? Or is it the exact financial lifesaver you desperately need to finally wake up and escape the rat race? The jury is in your hands. Will you play it safe with the poor dad mindset, or play it smart with the rich dad? Let us know what you decide.